I'm Aditya Swamy. I'm a director for the Google Ads business in India. And today to talk about the opportunity search provides everybody in this ecosystem, I have with me two stalwarts from the performance marketing industry. Let me start by welcoming them. First up, we have Prasad. Prasad is the CEO and founder of Logicserve Digital. Logicserve Digital is a full-service media agency that manages all kinds of performance marketing. Apart from his agency, Prasad is very active in the digital marketing circuit and is a strong supporter of the tech industry. Thanks, Prasad, for joining us.
Thank you, Aditya, for the introduction.
Next to Prasad, we have Pallav. Pallav, again, is a founder of one of the earliest performance marketing companies in the country, which later went on to get acquired by Publicis Group, one of the largest media networks in the world. Pallav now serves as the co-CEO of Performics, which is the performance marketing division within Publicis, managing some of the largest performance advertisers in this country. Pallav has really grown up building this practice in India, and if somebody who's got his fingers deep into this practice is him. So Pallav, great to have you here as well, and thank you for coming and sharing your excitement with the entire performance and search space.
Yeah, thanks, Aditya. It's a pleasure being on the same stage with you and Prasad.
Yes, it's a nice chat to have three of us together. Let me just set it up before we jump into the conversation. Today, India has 500 million people on the internet, and potentially another 500 million are going to come on in the next few years. At 1 billion people, India is poised to be the largest free internet market in the world. And that's a very, very exciting proposition that we're all sitting on and have the opportunity to shape. If you look at under this, search continues to be a very, very large part of consumer behavior on the internet. Today, we have 1.2 billion search queries every single day. Right? That's really a large number. And you can see that the profile of search is also changing. We see people coming in and searching from towns outside of metros. People are coming and searching in languages outside of Hindi and English. More recently, we are seeing people search with voice. And I think this is opening up huge number of possibilities on how brands can connect with their end consumers. Given that you all have been in this space or really shaped this space from the time we've seen it in India, what are your top of the mind views on how this has changed in the last few months given COVID? And do you see search playing a more important role in the consumer life journey?
A very interesting question, and especially at this point of time. So what has changed in last 6 months? Okay, the way we work, the way we shop, the way we entertain ourselves, the way we learn, the way we communicate. Okay, so everything has changed. At the beginning, if you just go back to that last week of March, all of us experienced that massive uncertainty, and main concern was about health. Okay. And consumers were, of course, looking for that safety, that convenience, that availability of essential items and value for money. So that is where the search played a vital role. When we actually want answers, or when we need information, or we are in doubt, what we do? We search on Google, okay, and that is when search, we express our intent on the search, and I feel that that's a great opportunity to understand what consumer is thinking, okay, and how they are changing. So one thing that all of us as marketeers actually crave during this last 6 months is to track that fast changing consumer behavior, and what is it that was sort of giving us that information is that all those search queries. If we look into the search queries, it gave a lot of insight into what consumer was thinking. In a way, brands got an opportunity to tweak those offerings or make those propositions changes. The search queries and conversation data that we had gave a plethora of information about what was changing. Now, leave aside those categories which needed travel and gathering of people. Okay, so they were severely affected. Okay, they really severely affected. Leave them aside. But we also saw that non-essential basket was really growing. Okay, if you see the McKinsey study, it talked about some of the important things like shift to value and essential, okay, flight to digital and omni-channel. They also talk about shop to loyalty, and that is where the second thing comes to my mind, okay, wherein just imagine how critical it was for brands to be present when the consumer is searching for answers or or looking for those queries, okay, and in McKinsey's report, they talk about loyalty. It's a very strong word. It gets built over the time when you are actually present, when consumer is asking for help. And that is where my second learning comes, okay, where your consumer is searching for solution. And if you have those solutions, be present there. Okay, thus search is not just a channel, and we talk about the multi-funnel. It's just not a channel or a digital touch point, but it is an important milestone in the consumer journey. In last 6 months, that is what I could actually see. Focus on performance, of course, imbibed by search, sets a very strong foundation for the future of digital marketing across channels and across everything that we do.
That's really interesting. I would maybe, switch gears a little bit. Prasad talked about loyalty, right? And in our language, we talk about search as the highest intent platform. And somebody is actually coming in and looking for a smartphone. They're actually in market to actively buy that. And given that the intent is highest on search also tends to be the most effective lever in the performance marketing arsenal. You've been in this practice and shaped it. If I had to ask you, is there a magic formula or a success formula to getting performance marketing right? And if there is such a thing, then what would be the few steps that you would recommend?
So the magic formula is simple. It's been in terms of being on the forefront of really analyzing what insights can search throw at you. Not just use it as a bottom funnel performance channel, which is very, very commonsensical. Everybody would use it for that. But how are you able to distill the insights that search throws at you from the point of view of intent across the entire funnel, okay? And develop your consumer journey accordingly and then drive the whole piece, right? So if I were to give you an example, we work with some of the largest OTT platforms in the country at this stage, right? And some very, very key insights that came out of that is the variability of content and languages that people would use in various different parts of the entire country, right? And a lot of it was manifested from search results as well, right? More so the language and the geography both. So when we created an interplay of all of these aspects and we ran communications for the consumers accordingly, we saw the results were much, much better than generic queries that we would run on search otherwise, right? The same goes for insurance players as well. We've seen this happen with one of the largest insurance companies in the country, where we took one small aspect, and I'll speak of a smaller aspect right now over here, which we could cover later as well, because I think it does speak of the coming of age of regional languages on search in India, right? And these guys, or this particular large insurance player, actually made the investment of creating the entire consumer journey in the regional language that is required, right? Right from the landing page to the ad copy to creatives and everything, right? And the effect of that was that they were able to build an instant connect with the consumer in that particular language, and they were able to drive that across the board, right? We've had certain cases where organizations have actually come to the forefront looking at the insights from search in the last 6 months and have tried to develop more straight-through processes or have tried to develop more products which would essentially gear themselves towards the insights that they've got from this particular channel, right? So to my mind, the magic formula is simple. Try to build a consumer experience that is frictionless, and search will deliver results significantly at a different scale altogether. The second aspect that I want to mention over here is that the advent of AI and ML in Google's own algorithms right now, when you're looking at paid search, right? And these have evolved significantly over the last 3 to 4 years, right? I mean, there is a sea change in the way my teams manage campaigns on search now compared to what they used to earlier. And the more you are able to work in tandem with the algorithm and the way you are able to apply best practices on the ML and AI driven platforms or targeting mechanisms that Google has developed, like target CPA or smart display campaigns or something called Project Neep that we're doing extensively with Google right now to drive that at scale with all our clients. We've seen fantastic results, right? Something that manual intervention could not drive.
It's interesting. Like you said it very well. But I think from a Google perspective, we think of it as just 4 simple buckets, and I'm sure you both will relate to it. Get the right set of keywords in, right? And you have to think about it as a dynamic set of keywords because consumer behavior is continuously changing.
Right.
set the bids right. And I think, like you talked about, given AI and ML now, you can do a lot of auto bidding and your bids can move up and down on a real-time basis. So getting the right bids, I think, is having the right bidding strategy. Right. The third is, I think, much neglected is the right ad copy. I've seen a lot of big brands spend a lot of time crafting their, video advertising, but somehow, don't think about the words that they put into their search ad copies. I think that makes a huge difference because search many times becomes the first port of call. And finally, I think it's just the assets. You talked about vernacular, but if somebody's searching for say a car and typing Gaadi and they're going to an English page, maybe the consumer experience is broken. But if they go back to a Hindi landing page, I think the conversion will be much stronger. So we really think about these four elements as being as the seamless consumer journey you talked about. And Prasad, to you, I know, in a lot of our conversations, you've been really a trendsetter in your belief in automation, right? And you've always, whenever I've talked to you, I've always been energized by your vision about how you think automation can, transform our industry. Share with us what makes you so excited about the automation opportunity, and what is required for the industry at large to adopt automation at scale in performance marketing.
See, again, when you and Pallav were talking about it, a lot of, and Pallav also gave a lot of emphasis on the automation part of it. Okay, so it also reminds me of a book. I'm quite sure many of you must have read it or must have at least heard it. Is Yuval Harari's 21 lessons for the 21st century, where he talks about new discoveries in the field of neurosciences and machine learnings, okay, and how they are impacting every industry, every industry. Now, if you just take one step back and look at us, you and me and all human beings around, at the end of it, we are algorithms. Okay, by controlled by that complex cocktail of signals triggered here somewhere, all those dopamines and all those hormones. So neural networks, deep learning, it's all enabling businesses to understand this complex, connotations and connections and things between, how we as consumers behave and what sort of signals that we leave behind across all those touch points, all those consumer journeys that we are, going through. So search is not at all exceptions to that. Okay. Earlier we also talked about how search intent queries are giving understanding. Okay, so just look at, and of course Pallav also talked about Project Neve on a large data sets. Okay, if we implement that well, it frees up a lot of time of digital marketeers to unlock more time to work on the strategy. So for one of our digital first insurance client, where we wanted to, the client said that you need to scale ASAP, and that ASAP was so ASAP. So manual changes and optimization wouldn't have been, it would have been very slow. It was not acceptable at all. So Neve really helped to scale that so fast. Okay, so that's the benefit of automation.
Prasad, do you find it useful to have one single metric to be able to measure account health? And how do you see this going down in your conversation with your teams and your clients?
No, it's definitely yes. Okay, because when I was listening to both of you, there are a few things that I was picking up and trying to get through in my mind. Okay, so talking about Google Ads. Okay, so you said set it up well. Okay. Pallav talked about automations and innovations. Okay, I will also talk about thinking audiences. I will talk about thinking formats, those ad copies, and innovations and KPIs and setting those expectations right and looking into insights. But at the end of it, there has to be one parameter which becomes some sort of a North Star. Okay, it says that this account is doing good, and that is where I love it too. Okay, because probably, if someone asks me setting up the Google Ads, what is it? It is a right brain or a left brain. Okay, I would definitely say it is creative. It's a right brain, because if I have to do something and you have to do something on the same account, then probably you will look at things from a very different way. But at the same time, when I get that score, okay, which runs across the bidding, the budgets, the keywords, the targeting, the ads and the extensions and automation, then it becomes something to gauge performance on. Of course, it gives you a number, then probably one has to get into it and find out whether it is the right one or wrong. Second one is that my life and my team's life have really improved there, because you exactly start, which are the areas to look into first. Okay, so that you ask them, you review it well. Another one is also it is a brownie point when we are interacting with the client. Okay, that when that score is 95 and those monthly meetings or quarterly meetings you put up that saying Opti score is 95, it gives it tells a lot of good things that what we are working on. So definitely I love it. Great great initiative by Google. But as Pallav said, there are a lot more to do, and I think over the years I think we should be able to do much more on that.
Talking about clients and what I hear quite commonly, and I think it's a big myth which I enjoy busting, is that search is a very urban phenomenon. Like in metros and tier 1 towns as where people are searching, search is not so relevant when you go out of urban India. Would any of you like to share what's your view? Do you share that belief, or do you think that are you on my side of the table where you think that that's a myth waiting to be burst?
I'm surprised actually, Adi, that people still go by that suggestion that search is still an urban phenomenon. I would have believed that maybe 6 years, 7 years earlier, but not progressively, and then not definitely recently. As of this day and age, with all the investments Google has put behind language search to drive its own reach and to drive and to make search available to people in the hinterlands of India, and the advent of voice search, right? I think search is no longer an urban phenomenon at all. The amount of searches and the amount of transactions people are able to drive through regional language searches also is not surprising anymore. I mean, it's significant going forward to clients who are actually making the right investments. I spoke of earlier of an example for a large insurance company which actually built user journeys in regional languages, and for an OTT player as well, which built user journeys and advertising in regional languages. And we saw fantastic efforts over there. I don't think it's an urban phenomenon at all. In fact, if you look at another proxy where you see a lot more e-commerce happening from tier 2, tier 3 towns, and even the villages as well, you'll see that a lot of transactions moving over there are also in regional languages.
I see consumer behavior is fundamentally changing, and a lot of search is happening, like you said, in language and in voice. I think what we truly need as an industry to capture this opportunity is to build an ecosystem that can deliver the language experience seamlessly end to end.
Right.
And in terms of just websites, landing pages, forms, all of that, right? So I think there's a role all of us can play in bubbling up that opportunity and making it bigger. Prasad, I have an interesting question. Sorry, go ahead.
So I think the importance of the consumer beyond metros is like undeniable and undisputable. Okay, we have been seeing this trend for so many quarters for sure. Okay, and those TV shows and movies always introduce the metro culture and metro lifestyle to tier 2 and tier 3. But the beauty is the internet. Okay, is a great leveler and enabler. Okay, it really enabled that communication velocity in tier 2 and tier 3. Okay, and especially now, okay, when as Pallav has rightly said, okay, it enabled that commerce, that trust. Okay, so if you see the ability for a person to punch in some buttons and get the information out of it, okay, which I'm talking about the internet, it really fuels that aspirations and that quest to know more. And that is one when under the channels were non-operational, digital became the dominant channel for communication, information, the entertainment, and probably commerce. So that's the beauty of it.
I think there's just one last point to add to that. As Prasad was saying, I was thinking of this as well. That if you look at certain brands and market leaders, actually, right, they have almost saturated the urban populations completely with their products as such, right? And when they look for opportunities further, they'll have to go to the hinterlands and the tier 2, tier 3 cities, or the semi-urban, semi-rural population altogether. And when they do that, I don't think they can do that without the investment on regional language searches and creating regional language experiences. So in search of growth, we'll see, I'm confident we are going to be able to see more and more such investments coming in, more and more validation of regional language, and regional language campaigns as such, end-to-end campaigns, and therefore search also as a subset of it, becoming more and more dominant and viable for clients to drive business results, right? The second point over here is in terms of, the population of the country that is coming on board through regional language searches, right? A lot of these people include folks from rural areas who may not have the educational qualifications that map up to or are in sync with what you have in the urban languages, or in urban areas rather. But what you see over here is that these guys are the ones who are going to be eventually using search as a platform to gain knowledge initially, build that trust, and eventually in the second year transact, right? So they are actually converting or being available as a captive market for us to go and reach out to in the coming future, right? So I think the years to come will only see this dominance growing. I don't see this halting anywhere, right? And whoever is thinking that search is only an urban farmer needs to have a serious recheck in terms of their own priorities.
That's great to hear. You touched upon a topic that's pretty hot currently right now on e-commerce, right? And say for a category like FMCG, is there place for e-commerce and search to coexist? And your reasons for thinking so?
Yeah, Pallav, if you want to take it first, it's okay. Otherwise, I can take it too.
No, go ahead. I'll add to you for your points. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think I strongly feel that both channels are absolutely not at all mutually exclusive. Okay, they intersect. They definitely intersect. Okay, for from aware to appeal to ask to act to advocacy, a consumer traverses back and forth across various digital channels and touch points. And one must one must not see the channels in isolation at all. Okay, because it's a part of the journey. It's definitely a part of the journey. Now, if you see search, it plays a great role not just as a at the discovery stage, but during every stage where consumer has is confused, or he wants more information, or he's just looking for options. So search for a consumer is about getting information, and thus the role of search in e-commerce journey is very much critical. Now, depending on the category and the type of the product, the appeal of the brand, search plays a different role across upper or middle or lower funnel. But the onus is on the brands to measure the influence of search in commerce by setting up the right mechanism to measure the influence, because definitely there's an influence. It has to be measured well.
In a world where ROI is so top of mind and more than ever, what do you think when I tell you that all marketing is today performance marketing?
In these times, essentially, when sales have been under pressure, significant pressure, pressure alone would be an understatement. Marketers and businesses have become all the more conscious about the monies that they're deploying and where they're deploying it, and therefore they're judging each and every aspect of the business and communications with a very, very fine magnifying lens. I think in these challenging times, I've seen a lot of clients move to statistical modeling, be it media mix modeling, be it multi-touch attribution, to actually figure out what their actual media mix should be. And they've been testing their own hypothesis. Something that worked last year and in the first quarter of this year is not necessarily going to work out for this entire year.
It was always like that, okay, and it will always be like that. Okay, so only thing is that how do you measure those? Which are the parameters that you set it up? How do you measure those? How do you actually connect all those dots and make sure that to find out whether something that you did worked or not? So that way, I would always say that everything that you do has to be a performance oriented. It's just that what is that parameter that you are setting up to measure it, and how are you measuring it? And rest, I think Pallav has already covered.
Wonderful to hear from both of you. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and for such a candid and open chat. You guys have been real ambassadors of driving this in the market, and I think the kind of clients that you work for is testament to the wonderful results that you deliver for them. And we look forward to working closely with you to deliver a lot of magical moments for everybody in this ecosystem. Thank you for the time again. Stay safe, stay healthy, and look forward to meeting you all soon again. Thank you.
Thanks, Aditya. Thanks, Prasad. As always, it's a pleasure.
Thanks, Aditya. Thanks, Pallav. Stay safe. Bye.